Hello everyone, I'm Brett Knight, and today we're going to talk about how I almost made a $250,000 mistake when I got my first drone and how you can keep from making that mistake. Well, I'm glad you're here with me. It's going to be a little bit different format than what we normally do. It's a little bit of a merging of a couple worlds of mine. Some of you follow me with the Fry Knight and Looper law page, where we're talking about the law and how it impacts you and your constitutional rights. Others of you might be more familiar with my farm page, where we're talking about Tennessee Kiko Farm, and we're talking about goat farming, and we're talking about farming technology and things of that nature. Well, those worlds seem to collided in one very fun area for me, and that was drones. For quite a while I've been researching drones, thinking about getting a drone, trying to convince my wife all the different ways in which I could use a drone around the farm, and finally I made the purchase, and I got myself my first drone, and went with this DJI Mavic Air 2S, and thrilled with it. All the reviews said it was great. It was easy to use and everything, and I found it to be so. And so, of course, like everybody else, I get it out of the box, and what's the first thing I want to do? I want to go fly it, right? I'm like a kid. I want to get it out there. I want to fly it. I want to fly around the lake, over the mountains, over the city. I want to do all the things that I've seen those great videos. And I found it easy to do and easy to control, but there was a voice inside of my head, the lawyer voice inside of my head, telling me, check the regulations, check the regulations, check the regulations. I had heard a little bit, here and there, kind of in the peripheral, about drone laws, but I really hadn't paid it much attention. To be honest, I'm a criminal defense attorney, and before that I was a prosecutor for the state of Tennessee. I don't really deal a lot with civil, and definitely don't deal with aviation law. So I thought, well, okay, let's be reasonable, let's do the responsible thing. Before I go out and fly my drone around wherever I want to, let's see what the law has to say about it. And boy, was I glad I did. I was shocked. The first couple, I started reading stories. I was reading, what the FAA guidelines were, and then I started hearing something about, Part 107, and there's these rules. But then it was, okay, well, that's for commercial, drone pilots. I'm not going to be a commercial drone pilot, so I don't have to worry about that. But I kept digging, because I'm a researcher. I kept digging the research, and I found out that in a lot of the ways I was planning to use my drone, they considered me a commercial pilot. For example, I was going to be using a lot of the video and pictures on the farm of different goats and the goat herd, and I was going to be putting it on my website, and I'd be using it for marketing purposes, for that. I was thinking about using it at different locations and courthouses and stuff to get pictures to use in my videos for the law practice. And both of those are examples that the FAA considers commercial. So I thought, wow, okay, I guess I'm commercial. What does that mean exactly? And what does it mean if I don't do it? What does it mean if I just went out there and flew this thing? And then I started hearing stories about a company called Skypan. I believe it's out of Chicago. And Skypan, they kind of did what I guess my first instinct was, which was they kind of flew their drones without worrying about what the FAA said and what the law said. They were cited for flying unregistered drones in areas where they weren't supposed to be flying, in ways in which they weren't supposed to be flying. So I thought, well, okay, I guess there's rules for all that. And they were fined $1.9 million. I felt like I should be like, $1 million. They were fined $1.9 million by the FAA for flying unregistered drones in places they weren't supposed to be and in ways that they weren't supposed to be flying. So of course, my instinct kicked in, and I start saying, okay, well, how are you supposed to be flying these drones? Where are you not allowed to fly these drones? And what needs to be registered, and how do I become a certified pilot if I need to do that? And I've ran into other stories. There was another individual more recently that he was fined $182,000 for flying without having his certification as a commercial pilot, drone pilot. So I was convinced. $182,000, $1.9 million. And hearing that the FAA can impose $32,666 fine per incident that you do wrong, and you can have multiple incidents in one flight, and they can impose a $250,000 penalty so okay, $250,000, you got my attention. You have my attention at a whole lot less than that. But so I realized, okay, obviously they're serious about this, imposing $1.9 million fines, which I think they ultimately settled for $250,000, which is a huge number. Somebody else being fined $182,000. The government's taking this very, very serious, so I guess I'm going to have to as well. So I had to look into it. What do I need to do? First of all, let's verify, do I really need to get this certification? And the answer, as I alluded to earlier, came back yes. If I'm using this for blogging, if I'm using this drone to obtain video and photographic files that I'm going to use in a blog, on YouTube, in which my businesses are connected. So in other words, they're tied to my business. Then yes, I'm going to have to be considered a commercial drone pilot, and I'm going to have to fall under this Part 107, and I'm going to have to meet all these requirements that the FAA says. So I got into it a little bit, and I thought, oh, this is a lot. First of all, I started seeing all the different requirements of what's going to be. I had to, be over 16, no problem there. I'd be able to, read and write in English, no problem there. But I had to pass this knowledge test. And when I started seeing what all was included on the knowledge test, it reminded me of, before I became an attorney, I was in IT management, and I had several, I think I had a total of 13 different IT certifications. It reminded me of these IT certifications that I had to take, all the different requirements that were there. And so I realized real fast I was going to need some help. So I looked online, started reading reviews. Is there an online course I can take? Is there some materials I can take? There was a company that just kept getting great reviews called Pilot Institute, and they had an online website. I went there, I signed up for their class, did all their online classes, all videos. The instructor's name is Greg. Greg did a great job kind of walking through all the different steps, but I will say it took me a whole lot longer to go through this process than I thought. I was hoping maybe one evening I could, get a little quick refresher, go take this little quiz and get my certification to be a drone pilot. Was not what it was going to be. You end up spending about 20 hours, I believe. It looked like about 20 hours, sorry, Pilot Institute if I'm quoting wrong there, but I believe it was about 20 hours worth of videos, instruction. And it was a ton of stuff. There were there were charts that I had to learn to read to determine whether or not I'm in restricted airspace, and if I was in restricted airspace, what kind of restricted airspace, what elevation did one restriction or classification end and another one begins. There was weather data, frequencies, recognizing obstacles, the law. I had to learn about lift and drag and bank. I had to learn how to read airport signs, military zones. Let's just say take the class. There was no way I was going to get all that information otherwise. And this is the supplement book that you're provided when you're taking the test. This is the supplement book you have to use while you're taking the test. Like I said, it's a whole lot more than I ever thought it would be. I'm reading charts like this, and I know you probably can't read that. I'll try to zoom in a couple pictures. I'm not trying to scare anybody off. I just want you to understand this is how serious the FAA takes flying a drone. So there was a lot of information. I went through all the classes. I went and took the class, or took the test, had to drive an hour away to go to an airport where there was an FAA testing facility, had to take a proctored exam, and you have to score above a 70, and I passed it, got my little license, and you get your passing score, and then you have to submit it to get your license that the FAA mails off to you. So it's a whole lot of information, but the big thing I want to kind of take away here is, one, If you're using your drone for anything other than entertainment, you have to be a licensed pilot. So here's my 10 takeaways on this, my 10 things that you need to know before you fly your drone. One, you need to determine whether or not you are commercial or not. And how the FAA defines that is, if it's for pure entertainment, then you're not commercial. However, there's a lot of areas where I'm flying my drone and I want to fly it up, I want to inspect the gutters. That's not for entertainment. That's not the purpose that you took off to fly. They're only looking at the purpose. It's not really about money, it's about the purpose for which you flew the drone. If I'm flying my drone and the purpose is I want to gather pictures and videos of my goats to put on my website, and from my website I sell my goats, that's not for entertainment. No matter how much fun it is doing it, it's not for entertainment. If I'm trying to gather background videos that I'm going to use in my YouTube video series for the law practice, that's not entertainment, that's commercial. So I clearly fall under that. And so the takeaway number one, if you use a drone for anything or for any purpose other than entertainment, you must be a licensed drone pilot, a certified drone pilot. Number two, so you have to register your drone unless it's under 0.55 pounds. So let me clarify that. You have to register your drone with the FAA on their site. It only costs $5. You have to register your drone if it's under 0.55 pounds. Okay, so if it's under 0.55 or over 0.55 pounds, you have to register it. If it's under 0.55 pounds and you're not using it for entertainment purposes, you still have to register it because it's for commercial. It falls under 107. So the only way that you're not going to register your drone is if it is under 0.55 pounds and is only ever going to be used for entertainment. So again, the vast majority of the drones are over that weight, and even if it were under it, a lot of people are using them for what would be considered commercial if you're using it in your blog and such. You must keep your drone in line of sight at all times. This is one of the things I kept looking at in the very, very beginning. I thought, well, surely these drones can fly a lot further than that, but the FAA requires that you must keep your drone in line of sight at all times. Very important. You cannot drink alcohol while you're flying a drone or within 8 hours before you're flying the drone. So no having a beer while you're flying your drone around the neighborhood. I know as much fun as that sounds, you can't do it. And you cannot have drank alcohol 8 hours prior to flying the drone. So there's pretty clear guidance there. You must verify the airspace you're flying in. This is more important and complicated than I thought in the very beginning. We're not talking about you must verify if it's your neighbor's land. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about airspace. We're not talking about land and ground. We're talking about airspace. You have to know, is the space I'm flying in restricted space? Is it near an airport, for example? Is it near some kind of critical infrastructure, power plants, things of that nature? So you have to be able to verify that. I won't get into all the ways that you can verify that, and I won't get into all the different kinds of space because that's something you're going to have to learn whenever you go through the class. It's very complicated. It took me hours to kind of get it all down, but you have to verify the airspace you're flying in. You cannot fly over people without specific requirements being met. And again, there's all different kinds of requirements. Is this a 2 drone or a 3 drone or a 1? And it depends on the size, and it depends on the thrust force of the propellers. Just understand you cannot fly it over people without meeting specific guidelines that the FAA has laid out. And you also can't cause, produce a hazard to property either. So flying too close to a building or flying too close to vehicles and flying around vehicles, again, all of that gets complicated. All of it is covered in the classes. You just have to take the classes to understand it. If you're flying over cars, you're flying over people, and you're not meeting these guidelines and under 107, you're doing it illegally. And that's when these other companies and people were fined for flying in an illegal way, that's kind of the examples that they could be doing. You have to be 16 years old to apply for the license. So if you're, if you have you bought your kid a drone for Christmas and they're, 14 years old, well, they could register it because you have to be 13 to register, but they can't become licensed. So they can't, fly around and take videos for you, and you use them, in some way that's not entertainment only. Need to know that if your drone causes serious injury or over $500 in damage, it has to be reported to the FAA. kind of related to that. If you're ever flying your drone and it quits working, you know, in such a way, I don't mean if it quits working and crashes. I mean if it quits working and the controller quits controlling it and it just flies off on its own without you being able to control it. That has to be reported, you know, to the government. And finally, local law enforcement and federal authorities may require you to show your license and documentation for your drone. They can come up to you and say, you know, hey, Mr. Knight, I see you flying your drone here. Let me see your, you know, what's your purpose you're flying it for? Let me see your paperwork. Let me see your logs. Let me see your license. Let me see if you've got any, if I'm flying it and I have to have some kind of an exception that I've requested from the FAA to fly in certain areas or in certain ways. They would want to see that. If I'm flying at, you know, civil, you know, kind of, area, if I'm flying at certain times of day, if I'm flying 30 minutes before sunrise, 30 minutes after sunset, I have to have certain, you know, strobe lights on my drone they could check to make sure that's there. So you can be stopped by the government, by local and federal authorities and check. So I would have made that mistake, could have been a $250,000 mistake, and I don't want you making a mistake that could cost you any amount of money. So did this quick video. I hope it's useful and helpful. Let me know, you know, if it is, and again, hopefully you can find a class like I did. You know, it worked out good for me, and I'm out there. You can see some, you know, video here. I'm out flying it around and doing the things I want to. And if you want to go to, you know, if you want to go to Pilot Institute and sign up for the same class as I did, I scored a 90, by the way. I mean, I was happy with that. I scored a 90% on my test, which was 20% above what I had to. So I was definitely prepared afterwards. And again, I'm not affiliated with them. They don't pay me any money to talk about them. It just worked for me. It was, you know, very good. I've taken a lot of online classes. They did a great job. It's very organized, prepared. He knew his stuff. Greg knew his stuff. So I would recommend them. But so if you're going to use it for your blog, you're going to use it for your website, and you're selling things off your website, you know, you have to get your certification. You know, go get that done so that you're not running afoul of it. Again, it took me a few days to get through it all. Kind of a pain. I had to take some time off to go to, you know, an hour away to take the test. But now that I have done that, I can go fly my drone and I don't have to worry about it. I know how I'm supposed to fly it and I can enjoy it. And again, it's a ball. I love my my Mavic Air 2S, and it's great. I can see me, you know, even getting even more into this hobby and using it on my blogs and websites. So I hope you do. Happy flying. I hope you enjoy. Just let's make sure we're doing it legally and the correct way. And I can understand why now, kind of going through the class, why the FAA is trying to regulate this. We don't want it to operate these drones in a reckless or a dangerous way that causes damage to people, to property, flies in airspace where we could cause damage to airplanes. So I understand why they're regulating it. It is kind of a pain when you're going through it, but I do understand why there's a good reason for it. So let's all fly safely and have fun. Thank you for joining me. And again, this is kind of a combined, this will be on both my YouTube page for the farm, for Tennessee Kiko Farm, and I'll probably go ahead and put it in one of the, you know, areas on the Fry Night and Looper, because it is law related and it is something that I'm going to use. I'm going to do an additional video talking about agricultural uses of drones, some of the research that I've done and how their drones are being deployed and used in agriculture, specifically in like row crops, for fertilizer, for seeding, for orchards, you know, how I plan on using it here on the goat farm, both for being able to fly out, check fences after storms and bad weather, to check, you know, the health of the animals out in the herd, to see if I have a goat down during kidding season, to see if there's, you know, kids that have been born over remote areas, to be able to check on them, to fly around and kind of do a predator patrol to see if any coyotes are, you know, working around the hillsides. You know, so there's lots of ways, and even kind of herding the goats a little bit. There's lots of ways I plan on using it for the goat farm. So I'll do another separate video on that. But take care. Thank you for joining me.